Hi, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and today we found out that there's going to be a Magic the Gathering crossover with Warhammer and with Lord of the Rings. Magic players are going to be fucking angry, aren't they? As revealed in a, article or news article today by comicbook.com, Magic the Gathering is set to announce new crossovers with other popular fantasy properties including Lord of the Rings and Warhammer 40,000. Hasbro will announce the crossovers later today at an investor event, along with a reorganization that will spin Wizard of the Coast into its own division, blah, 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 blah. It turned out the Wall Street Journal was the first to report all of this, but I saw the comicbook.com one first. As Kristen tweeted about it, and yeah, got tongues a wagging. At the moment, we don't have the full information. All we know is that we're going to get a Warhammer and a Lord of the Rings crossover, and we'll be learning more about that today. In theory, the investor event started literally 10 minutes ago before we turned on this camera. I was going to wait an hour or two to see if we got more news, but honestly, I want to make this video, put it out, and then go and relax. I don't want to be sitting around like some sort of itching journalist. Maybe I should. Maybe I should have waited, but either way, the information in this might be out of date by this time tomorrow. I may do an update video for this tomorrow as well to go on with it. If you didn't give a shit about all this, I put out some modern gameplay today as well, and I've got another video coming out which is a talking head around Commander tomorrow as well, so plenty of content for y'all. We aren't unfamiliar with crossovers, right? We have the Godzilla cards in Ikoria, we've had the Walking Dead Secret Lair. These things were met with varying degrees of frustration and upset. And of course, we've got the Dungeons and Dragons one coming up, and we've had other ones in Silver Border like Transformers and My Little Pony. The Ikoria Godzilla ones were a little bit controversial and people were a bit funny about it, but ultimately no one cared because they were reskins. Every single card in Ikoria that got a Godzilla treatment, barring the buyer box, I believe, they all got a Magic version and a Godzilla version. So you could skin your cards to look like the Godzilla cards that you want, but you didn't have to. Walking Dead was different. It was a secret lair where we got basically mechanically unique. That means that they weren't in any other set. They're only available for a limited amount of time in this set, and they had Walking Dead names. At present time, we know that Lord of the Rings is going to be a set, or expansion. Now, this is all the news around investor events. So when it says expansion, that could just mean a box of boosters. It could be a booster box set. It could be a secret lair. It could be a board game. I'm going to come through some ideas like we're flowing through my head in a moment. But the important thing to understand is that expansion doesn't mean the same thing to you and I as it does to a board of investors or even Hasbro. That can be loose language. That could mean anything that expands the Magic the Gathering game. And Warhammer 40,000 for some reason doesn't have that full expansion thing going on. So it's likely that Lord of the Rings will be a set and Warhammer will not. The other weird thing that comes up straight away is that it's Warhammer 40,000, not Warhammer Age of Sigmar, the fantasy property from Warhammer. For those of you who don't know, I stream and I paint. I'm in the middle of painting some non-GW models right now. I say in the middle of, they're not, I'm not right now, but I mean, this is as great a demon. Could even belong on a Magic card, honestly. I'll come to that more in a moment. But I play Warhammer, I got into it really heavy last year and I love it. It's now part of me, my brand, the channel, all that jazz. 40,000 is a weird fit in some ways because it's the fantasy in space one. They have spaceships and laser guns and aliens and robots, where Age of Sigmar is literally probably almost too similar to Magic. I think there's two reasons for why they've done this. One, 40,000 is miles ahead more popular than Age of Sigmar. It is just incredibly successful by comparison. To the point that Age of Sigmar is a rebranded version of Warhammer Fantasy, where Warhammer Fantasy wasn't doing very well. So they nixed it to go Age of Sigmar and used a lot of the aesthetic and design principles of Space Marines to create what are called Sigmarines. These things, Stormcast Eternals. That is literally because Fantasy just wasn't selling like 40k was. They were trying to emulate some of that success. And on top of that, I think Age of Sigmar and the Sigmarines and all that sort of shit, it looks just almost too akin to Magic. You can grab some Age of Sigmar art and some Magic art and put it up on screen, and you might struggle. I could do that now, but I'm probably not going to because I'm rushing to put this video out. But some people, the layman, would struggle to say which property was which, or they weren't from the same property at all. So 40,000 is more distinct in that sense. So they're the two reasons I expect. And people are saying that 40,000 seems like a very bad fit for Magic because it's science fiction. Now, I'm not going to get down in the nitty-gritty of genre theory or my opinions on genre too much here, But I think people are taking too much at face value that because Magic the Gathering, look at this poster over there, has swords and shields and goblins, it's a fantasy property. And because Warhammer has guns and lasers, it's a science fiction property. That isn't true. There's a lot more to a genre in terms of fiction or even game setting than just the aesthetic, the visuals, or the iconography. For example, a lot of fantasy tends to ape like fables and parables with their moral messaging. Meanwhile, a lot of science fiction tends to be about the conjecture of what-if scenarios. So some science fiction is so close to being real-life time periods and technology that you don't need laser guns and rockets to make it sci-fi. It's what-ifs. The majority of superhero fiction, for example, is arguably science fiction. But, I mean, again, let's not get bogged down with the genre stuff. I want to point out that in 40k, it's basically medieval fantasy in space. The spaceships are just giant fucking cathedrals. Most of the tech, it's not really understood how it works by the Imperium at large, the humans. Everyone is devoutly religious to this god emperor figure who's just a corpse lying on a throne. And some people pray to an omnissiah, a god that it's not even clear if it exists, just in the hope that the AI that drives their tank will behave, or that the gun won't jam in combat, because they don't really understand how they keep these things up. It's all oils and incense and chanting and magical hokey pokey shit. There are miracles, there are elder gods, there is chaos space magic. The point I'm getting at is that whilst I do agree that machine guns and explosions and the grimdark violence of it all is a little bit of a weird fit for Magic, the fantasy versus science fiction conversation is... It's like we're having the argument over here and we aren't looking at the actual thing that I kind of understand. It's over here, like, oh, Warhammer's a bit grimdark and it's satirical of space fascism. But people are like, no, don't talk about that. Let's talk about lasers versus... Oh wait, Magic also has lasers. The fantasy versus sci-fi thing is just kind of like... It's very surface level. It's very simple in its discussion of this, what is inevitably going to be a controversy. So you're probably wondering, personally, where do I sit? Well, I am fucking excited. I love both properties. I have loved them since I was a kid. I've recently got balls deep back into Warhammer, and I've been into Magic since I was a wee nipper. And as for Lord of the Rings, I do like Lord of the Rings a lot. I am a Lord of the Rings fan, shall we say, but I don't really own anything Lord of the Rings. I don't engage in Lord of the Rings as much as I do other things. Big fan of Gandalf, big fan of Gimli, love the movies. I've read like half of one of the books when I was a kid, got bored with Tom Bombadil and all this shit in the Fellowship, and that's kind of where I'm at. So, I'm excited for both crossovers. I think crossovers can be done very well, because when we look at the Godzilla crossovers near Korea, it tells them there's nothing to worry about. These can be skins in which you don't have to play Frodo in your deck if you don't want to. But then we come to The Walking Dead, which shows mechanically unique, FOMO-inspiring nonsense that is playable in Legacy. So you have to play with fucking Rick Grimes from Walking Dead if you... And that teaches me there's a lot to worry about with crossovers. This is the duality of being a fan. I'm expecting to get a lot of shit from Magic players. I'm expecting that when myself and Brian sit down to have a chat about this, whether it be for dice to removal or casually, he's going to give me a lot of shit for this as well. Because Brian can be stuck in his ways, right, my friend? But people are going to give me shit. I'm expecting to get a lot of shit from this because I'm actually really fucking excited for a Warhammer crossover. So here's some theories about how they should do these crossovers. This is how I would do these crossovers based upon the feedback and what happened with The Walking Dead. And bearing in mind, I think that Wizards of the Coast do enact on feedback. We're seeing it right now with the changes to how white is used in game design. Things like the Pringling and the cardstock issues, I think that's higher up than Wizards. That's more of a Hasbro problem. And with them being folded more and more into Hasbro and Hasbro potentially have more control of the Magic property, I wouldn't get your hopes up that cardstock's going to be fixed anytime soon. I think those issues will be ongoing. Personally, what I would like to see is reskins similar to Godzilla. A Warhammer Secret Lair where we get 4 to 6 characters from Magic. We get Grimgrin as a Great Unclean One, for example. A Warhammer model that I fucking love. Or we see that in a set or another expansion. With the Lord of the Rings, I would do the same. I don't want to have mechanically unique Legolas, so you can only play with Legolas if you need that way of engaging with elves. I think it would be much better if the entire set, so here's my theory, a Masters set. So like Double Masters, Iconic Masters, Modern Masters, but it's Lord of the Rings Masters. It's loads of Magic cards. You've got Sol Ring as the One Ring. You've got I don't know, some fucking Marwyn. That's the first elf I could think of as Legolas. You've got Torbran as Gimli. You've got all these cards that we can then reprint and are playable, but they aren't introducing anything mechanically unique. That means that Lord of the Rings has to become a key part of the identity of Magic unless you want it to be. I'm saying give me Warhammer and Lord of the Rings skins for existing cards and inject it into my fucking bones. But no to mechanically unique shit. And I think mechanically unique secret layers, even if they weren't skinned in any way, would be a problem, right? But I think the problem is exasperated. It is that the word I'm looking for? Made, flared up, agitated, like a sore bottom. It's made worse by it being a property that you may really dislike. And the thing is, with something like Lord of the Rings, it's very hard to find someone that really hates Lord of the Rings or feels like it's offensive to see. But with Walking Dead being as grimdark as it is, and Warhammer being as grimdark as it is, I can see why someone may not want a chainsword ripping through the entrails of another character in Magic. I get that. So, whilst I don't think skins of stuff like the Godzilla cards are bad, I do think there should be an option to play those cards without those skins if you see fit. So on Arena, you can turn off alternate skins, for example. Or for your deck, at least sitting down at the game night at your local store, you don't have to play with those cards. I think there's going to be a lot of pushback about this, no matter what happens. It could literally, barring not happening, I think Magic players will complain. I think we're in a global pandemic where everyone is frustrated and wants to take their frustrations out on something. And also, Wizards of the Coast have misstepped so many times in recent months and years with power creep and card stock and bannings and not bannings and Arena. And there's so many problems that they've had recently that are legitimate things to be pissed off about. I think Magic players are very quick to get agitated like a bumhole. There was a moment in a call on my Discord recently, and the person should not be named, I'm not dunking here, where someone was annoyed at the idea that we were going back to Innistrad soon. And they were like, why can't we go somewhere new and original? And I was like, what about Kaldheim that we're in now? Or like Strixhaven that we're going to? Which one is it? Are we not going to enough new planes? Or do you want to... Why are you mad at this? I'm not saying there isn't reason to dislike Warhammer skins, Lord of the Rings skins, any skins for that matter, on Magic cards. I think that's a valid thing to not want. But I do think that we're going to see a huge backlash from people who don't want it in a way that's probably disproportionate to the idea of just don't play with the ones you don't want. However, we might not get what I'm saying, right? We might get a Warhammer Secret Lair where Calgar is a fucking powerful blue 3-drop akin to True Name Nemesis. And then it's Legacy now, and we have to play with Magnus Calgar, and you can't play with the Magic-themed one to keep the cohesion of the game you want to play. I am really hyped for it. I think it's going to be exciting and fun. I want to see a load of different characters from Magic reimagined as to what their Warhammer counterparts would be, as we saw with the Godzilla ones. And that shit's cool. I am fearful that that won't be the case. I'm fearful it's going to be blackboarded, mechanically unique, miss out if you don't get it now, secret layers, which is just ticking every box of where I think you shouldn't do with this shit. I would ideally, if they are going to be mechanically unique, like say the Transformers and the My Little Pony ones were, that we have them silver bordered. I think that solves a lot of these issues. Especially if we just say all silver bordered from unstable onwards are legal in Commander, because a lot of legends are cool and fun to play with. And that way we solve everything, right? Just make all of those legal. Fuck Unglued and Unhinged. The cards are fucking stupid. Unstable onwards, all legal in Commander. Here's some silver bordered ones in Secret Layers. And that way Legacy and Vintage don't get fucked by them as well. Doesn't change the fact that if you wanted that effect, you'd need that particular Tyrannid or whatever. But I think that's another way of doing this that won't piss everyone off. But I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the video. Of course, the feedback from The Walking Dead that I think Wizards are reacting on, that feedback will take a few years to filter through. So if this is being announced now and coming out in 2 years' time, then I think they will react to the feedback. But if this stuff is coming out like in the next month or two, it was probably already created and signed off on and gone to print before any feedback from The Walking Dead Secret Lair could affect it. Oh, whoopsie. I've been Vince, also PleasantKenobi on the internet. Here's a quick video to talk about all this stuff that's happening. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I think I already know what the overwhelming reaction will be, which is people being very fucking annoyed. But let me know anyway. And be nice to me. You might not like Warhammer, but I really fucking like it. Right, that's it. You can fuck off now.